Good Monday morning, and thanks for joining us here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We have a lot to get into today, some big news overnight with the U.S. Senate, but right here in Hampton Roads, we're going to get kick-started with a big drop in temperatures causing a weather impact alert for tomorrow. Again, thanks for joining us here. I got meteorologist Craig Moeller with us. Craig, how low are we thinking about?
You know what? I'm really wondering if I have to keep dropping this on you because sooner or later you're going to be like, we don't want Craig coming back anymore. Hey, winter has arrived across portions of the central U.S. and the eastern U.S. To answer your question, Eugene, sub-freezing temperatures expected across parts of the area tomorrow. Let's take a look at what I'm tracking out there. Basically, we have decreasing clouds, a cool Monday. Temperatures today in the low 50s as we go through the afternoon. Tomorrow morning, temperatures in the 20s to low 30s for much of us. There might even be a few flurries. I want to let folks know about that. It's one of those things, I've been getting texts and emails and different, DMs, whatever. Folks saying, is it really a chance we could see a few flurries? Yeah. There could be a few overnight or by sunrise tomorrow, then much nicer for the rest of the week. Basically, we've got this dip in the jet stream. It comes way south, Eugene, not just Hampton Roads, but all the way down through Georgia. Freeze warnings. How are they going to handle that?
They won't do it very well, I can tell you that very much. I mean, anytime you introduce the words freeze and Georgia, as a Georgia native, it doesn't sit well with us.
Little frost on the peaches and the peanuts down there.
Yeah, just a little bit. But even for here, did I hear you say something potentially, that four-letter S word?
Well, okay, so I do want to make sure everybody's got their expectations in check here. Most of the models, again, hinting that there might be a little something showing up on some of the radars. Most of that will be aloft. A few flurries may make it down to the ground. It would take something for us to get snow showers here, but it's a possibility. In fact, I'm going to be out in the Weather Interceptor tomorrow morning, keeping a close eye on the temperatures across the region. Taylor Stephenson, we're going to ask her to hold down the fort here at the studios while I'm out hunting for snowflakes and certainly bringing you gusty winds and cold temperatures. Wind chills tomorrow are going to be down into the low 20s, as you're going to see. Take a look at the probability of a freeze as we go through 7 a.m. The area is shaded in blue, 50-50. Probably not as great right at the ocean front around 7 o'clock. We might see those temperatures down around 32, 33 as we go towards 8. But those inland areas shaded in purple, they will be seeing freezing temperatures, and there could even be a hard freeze for a few inland spots. These are those futurecast wind chills we were talking about. When we bring out the blue-faced cold winter wind guy, that it's a cold morning. Wind chills expected to get down into the low 20s tomorrow. So for your way into work or school or wherever you may be headed tomorrow, you definitely need to bundle up. I know a lot of the kids actually off tomorrow for Veterans Day, but I'll just mention that. A chilly start to the day. All right, temperatures right now in the low 50s. We have upper 40s inland. The clouds that are out there are going to clear out. We had some showers earlier. That stuff's gone. Eugene, the big news is what comes in tonight. Look at this model. This is a futurecast. At midnight, a few flurries out around Richmond and Petersburg as we go towards 5 a.m. Could see that stuff working down the peninsula, the middle peninsula, parts of the south side, at least some flurries, and that's why I'll be out in the Interceptor seeing if we can find a few of those.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what we see in the morning, particularly on daybreak with that. And Craig, one more time, can you remind us how long this cold front is expected to last?
So the front comes in. Let's go to the 7-day forecast. I want to show you this. It's going to be a very cold start to the day tomorrow. Low 30s, little cooler inland. Freeze warning in place. Tomorrow's highs in the mid 40s to upper 40s. After that, we're close to 59, 58, 60 degrees Wednesday through Saturday. Our normal high is around 64 right now, so we're actually going to be a little bit below average, but not crazy cold Wednesday through Saturday. By Sunday, we're back to average in the mid 60s. So it's not a terrible cold blast, but it is a significant one, and it's going to be not quite a hit it and quit it. It'll be cool, but it is going to be coldest tomorrow morning, and then we do recover.
All right, Craig, man, we appreciate you. So you heard the man. Make sure you bundle up. Don't walk outside tomorrow and say, oh, I didn't know. You've been warned. We got our producer, Nia Campbell, in the house. She has on her full body sweater, I believe. I can't see her pants. So she came
She got
prepared.
the high turtleneck. I love that. I said, she looks warm and cozy. And again, you were smart. You checked the forecast, although you thought it was actually going to be colder this morning.
Just based off of my body. I felt like it was going to be colder.
You don't have a big tolerance for the cold? You don't like the cold?
I like the cold, but I like to be prepared for the cold. So.
All right. Well, I mean, that sweater's perfect, and you can wear it again tomorrow because it will certainly be cold tomorrow.
Wild things to hear coming from someone from Florida that I expected it to be colder. But for sure, again.
That's why I moved here.
Make sure, like Naya, you are prepared when you go outside for work or whatever you're going to do on Veterans Day. Actually, maybe not a lot of people working, but you want to make sure that you are prepared for that. Craig, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And, of course, we'll be keeping track with everything since tomorrow is the potential for a freeze. Right now, though, we do want to switch gears to a big story overnight. U.S. Senate lawmakers were able to reach a key portion of a deal that could help to fund the government moving forward. And so right now we do have House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is speaking from a podium about, I assume, that deal and what it means now as we have been in the longest government shutdown in the history of the U.S.
You need to begin right now returning to the Hill. We have to do this as quickly as possible. Now, we look forward to the government reopening this week so Congress can get back to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of business to do, as you all know, and we will be working in earnest. There'll be long days and long nights here for the foreseeable future to make up for all this lost time that was imposed upon us. I want to close with something that's important. I think it's important to say that this is genuine. I mean this sincerely. We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics. And my urgent plea of all my colleagues in the House, and that means every Democrat in the House, is to think carefully, pray, and finally do the right thing and help us to bring an end to the pain of the American people. This has gone on too long. Too many people have suffered, and it's long overdue. That's the update I wanted to give you this morning. There are probably lots of questions, but I'm going to get a lot of my own questions answered later today, so stay tuned for more. Thanks so much.
You see there brief remarks from House Speaker Mike Johnson. Remember, the House is not in session right now. Typically, he speaks and he stays and he takes questions. No questions this morning as you see reporters there scrambling to try to get something out of him. Overnight, Senate lawmakers were able to reach a key vote that could get us to the point where the government has been funded. And that included a handful of Democrats who have now broken with their own party, including Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. And it does not include any kind of guaranteed extension for those subsidies with the Affordable Care Act, which has been a pivotal portion of why this stalemate has taken place in the first place. However, it would fund the government through the end of January and also provide some SNAP funding through September. And it provides a promise of a vote on the extensions of those tax credits for health care. There are plenty of Democrats who are not excited about this, who voted against it, including the other senator from Virginia, that being Mark Warner. So all of this still comes as we are experiencing major flight delays and cancellations across the country, more than 1,000 today. And right now we are hearing from the president of the Air Traffic Control Association for America there. President Nick Daniels is speaking from the podium as they have now gone their second consecutive paycheck without getting anything. Let's listen to him now.
When it finally ends, it's us, the federal workforce, that has been the rope in this game of tug of war. Now, let me be clear. Not just air traffic controllers and aviation safety professionals or federal employees. No American should ever be forced to work without a paycheck. To not pay someone for the work that they have performed is un-American, and failing to pay that workforce that keeps our sky safe is not acceptable, and it is not sustainable. We embrace the responsibility we hold and the trust we are given. This past weekend, air traffic controllers ensured that over 7.3 million passengers arrived on time, arrived safely, and flying over 113,000 flights. And they all arrived safely at their destinations. They did this despite continuing to operate with 3,800 fewer fully certified controllers than the system requires. And this is not a new issue. NACA has been advocating for increased controller staffing for more than a decade. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy recognized this concern and implemented plans to supercharge controller hiring and modernize the air traffic control system. And we've shared the same vision. We also thank him for his outspoken support of air traffic controllers and for ending this shutdown. The effects of this shutdown have real consequences for hardworking, patriotic American workers. Last Friday, we delivered over 1,600 handwritten letters from our members to the congressional offices expressing the hardship that they are experiencing. These are not statistics. These are the lives of people who keep this country moving. One of our members recently moved from Alaska to Illinois and is in training at her new facility. Her husband of 20 years is a 5-time combat veteran who has 45 documented explosions and 7 direct hits in his service record. He returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with a traumatic brain injury diagnosis and 100% permanent and total service-related disability. Consequently, she is the single source of income for her family. Their son just graduated from Navy A school, 4th in his class, but they could not afford to attend his graduation. She's plagued by financial insecurity, and in addition to training at her new facility, she has sold plasma twice, started delivering for DoorDash, and recently took a part-time job on her regularly scheduled days off or day off. A NACA member in Nebraska pays a $2,800 copay for a specialty medication to treat his wife's autoimmune disorder and prevent it from becoming crippling. After a month without pay, he's unsure how he's going to pay for the basic living expenses and his wife's medical needs. We've heard from recent graduates of the air traffic control training in Oklahoma. They are resigning and cannot begin this challenging new career without a paycheck. We've heard from other air traffic controllers that are struggling to find ways to to pay for gas and to get to and from work, while others are struggling to pay for childcare so they can go to work. These are real people. They're real Americans, and they are facing real problems. They deserve better, and they absolutely deserve their pay. The aviation safety professionals we represent are doing everything they can to continue to show up and deliver America's passengers and cargo safely to their destinations. Congress must act immediately and end the government shutdown and ensure that all individuals who have not been paid during this prolonged closure receive their compensation. Enough is enough. Now, thank you, and I'll be happy to take your questions along with Amy and Jonathan. Go ahead.
Even if Congress strikes a deal to end this government shutdown, how soon do you think we'll have enough air traffic controllers back working to avoid cancellations and delays that we're seeing?
Well, air traffic controllers are showing up every day right now, day in and day out, doing an amazing job that they can. What we're going to have to find out is how many actually resigned, how many retired due to this shutdown, and truly started assessing all the different impacts that this shutdown's had. Yes.
Do you have a sense of how many recent graduates have resigned already?
We only have reports. I've talked to Secretary Duffy. We knew over last week it was 4 to 5 that had already resigned and growing by the day. Go ahead.
Hi, Ali from Bloomberg News here. I wanted to ask if obviously there's a deal right now that's being worked through Congress, hopefully passes. But if that's passed, when's the soonest that controllers would get
We don't have the exact timetables because we don't know when the government will fully, give him just a moment, make sure he's okay. All right. We don't know when the government fully opens up and what the pay schedules will look like. All I can reference is what happened in 2019, and it took air traffic controllers approximately 2 to 2.5 months to be able to be made whole from all of their compensation. They'll receive some early on compensation based off of previous pay, but then going back in air traffic controllers, then having to weed through paycheck after paycheck to see where they compensated for all the time that was missed. Yes, sir.
Sam, Politico. Secretary Duffy yesterday said DOD had offered military air traffic controllers to him, but he was unsure if he could use them for the civilian airspace. What's the status of this idea? What has NACA heard from DOD?
We haven't directly engaged with it, but air traffic controllers across the country go through a rigorous training process. They're highly skilled, highly trained, and that would take quite some time to have anyone else control the airspace that FAA controllers do in a day in and day out.
And is NACA's understanding that the FAA ordered flight cuts at 40 airports will continue to be phased in and ramped up this week despite the deal in the Senate?
Administrator Bedford and Secretary Duffy would be the ones to determine if that process is going to move forward. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Tom Costello with NBC News. Assuming, and hopefully, you all do receive a paycheck quickly, assuming that the shutdown ends, how long will it take for your workforce, for your controllers, to feel like they've got their head clear, that they're back in the game, that they're able to go in and not have that distraction? In other words, is there a residual lag time before your controllers truly are back feeling like they're back in the game and able to concentrate solely on the job?
Yeah, this is one of the worlds where this shutdown isn't a light switch. It's not just on and it's not just off. Air traffic controllers have to go in and be perfect every single day. And they know, based on what is in the current bill, that January 30th will loom around the corner. Being made whole and being able to be back up is knowing that every shutdown that you could possibly be the political pawn never puts controllers completely at ease, but getting them paid is the priority so they can live their lives and ensure that they have the proper compensation. It's the right step in the right direction. Whatever it takes to open this government and pay our members is what's needed right now. And we'll have to continue dealing with the fallouts and what the stress, added stress and pressure that this has caused. Go ahead.
Dave Shepardson from Reuters. The Secretary said that the safety data has been going in the wrong direction and suggested that controllers are making more mistakes, they're fatigued, for runway separation, ground incursions, and so on. They also cited reports that pilots filed. Have you seen this data? Do you think that's accurate, that controllers are not performing as well as they did pre-shutdown?
I haven't seen the data specifically, but I can tell you every day that this shutdown it goes on, that an air traffic controller had to survive 41 days with financial insecurity, that leads to added stress, frustration, pressures where air traffic controllers cannot be 100% focused on their job. They're not a political pawn. They shouldn't be used as a rope in this game, and they know it. They feel it, and absolutely, every day that this drags on, that we have to worry about the stress and the pressure on them. For a workforce that has to go in and be 100% of the time, there is no world where it just operates the same and smoothly when people aren't receiving pay. So it's something that concerns us. It's something we've been speaking about, and it's something that's been real since day one of this shutdown. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay, first one. We're obviously in the midst right now of ramping up these flight restrictions at the 40 airports. We don't know if that's going to continue on or not, but is that something that's actually making an appreciable difference or would make an appreciable difference at a certain threshold for the controllers as Secretary Duffy was trying to do?
Secretary Duffy and Administrator Bedford will have to review what each and every one of those restrictions does and what it looks like, and are they getting the results they see. Air traffic controllers show up to do our job day in and day out. One plane or every plane in the sky, we're going to do everything we can to ensure the safety of the American flying public, and the administration will have to determine what that looks like. But I can say that we have made it very clear that every day that this shutdown was to go, that's going to be an increased risk in the system. When there's increased risk in a system, there's only one way, there's two ways that you can handle it. One is open the government and paying the air traffic controllers and the aviation safety professionals. Two is you have to look at the capacity of the airspace and how many flights that air traffic controllers are handling every single day.
And the second one is just, I know at the beginning of the shutdown, you were very clear about saying, warning members, don't try to do any sort of organized action, that would be illegal. There have been a couple of air towers facilities that have had a very large number of people calling out military that we highlighted Atlanta yesterday between 22. We've seen that happen in Newark, Chicago, Los Angeles at times during the shutdown. What's your explanation for what's going on there? Are there small organized actions happening, or is there another explanation for why we see these concentrations, a lot of controllers in one space, not having absences of listening?
We absolutely do not condone any or support any level of a organized action. There are no organized actions going on. If there are issues in this system that are resulting from the shutdown, they have to be determined and discussed and addressed by the FAA every single time that something like this goes on. What our members are facing are issues, right? We use the term call in sick so loosely with the federal workforce that are the accepted employees that have to show up. They're facing real issues. We have letter after letter talking about the impacts this shutdown that is having on them, that they can't pay for gas to get to work, that we have trainees that have moved hundreds if not thousands of miles across the country to the highest cost areas of living and now can't even afford to go to work, or they can't afford the child care to come into work. That is real, and it's not something that can be looked at, or it's not something that can be diagnosed, because it's going to be moving around the country, different people, different shifts, different issues in their life every single time. And speaking about that, I did want to give Amy a chance to speak about just those pressures right there. She comes from a dual, both her and her husband work for the FAA, and what that's kind of caused. So Amy, if you'd like to address that.
So my husband and I are both air traffic controllers. Now having missed 2 paychecks, that uncertainty and that financial strain is becoming unbearable. It's now a dinner time conversation with my kids on prioritizing bills. Yesterday, my kids asked me how long we could stay in our house. Having to answer that question was heartbreaking. But it's not just us that's dealing with that. That stress, that uncertainty, that fear is being felt among thousands of air traffic control families across the nation.
Amy, can I just ask you while you're still there, can you speak a little bit more about the personal stress and what this is doing to you and to your family? You mentioned a little bit there, but just every single day going to work with this hanging over you, what have you had to juggle? Have you had to juggle, I don't know, going to the grocery store or putting gas in your car or diapers? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we work in an environment that requires that 100% focus and presence. And then having to have those conversations at home with your family, with your kids, explaining that, hey, Christmas might look a little bit different this year, right? That's difficult on the family. That adds a stress that we've never had to deal with in the past. So when you walk into an operation and you know your coworkers have taken a second job, they're up till midnight driving Uber because they can't pay their bills. Everyone's questioning if they can pay their mortgage. I have coworkers who cannot pay for childcare, so now they have to figure out how they're going to come into work. That uncertainty, that fear, creates a distraction that no air traffic controller should have to carry when we're ensuring the safety of the flying public. But that being said, we are 100% committed to our jobs. Every flight that we handle is our #1 priority, and the safety of that flight. We just want to do the work that we love, continue serving the flying public, but not have to question how we're going to pay bills and make ends meet.
Thank you. Did I miss somebody back here? Go ahead. I'll come right over here next.
CBS News. You talked about this a couple different ways, but I'm just curious, as we're approaching the possibility of the government shutdown ending today, do you see a world in which we see less staffing triggers and staffing improves by the end of this week, or do you think that is going to continue to carry on as this, kind of peters out?
I think we've seen a shutdown go longer than any time in history, and every single day it's presenting a new challenge. You can't predict what the issues are, because, again, if the shutdown is to end tomorrow, controllers still haven't been paid yet. They're still facing those issues. While the rest of America will get to go on, and that will no longer be the headline the news headline, it's still real for them. So we're going to have to continue working through the issues, and our focus is it's not ended. Even though that there is a new light at the end of the tunnel, we'll call it that, every single day an air traffic controller is still facing the issues that they had yesterday, and they're getting worse every single day. So we will continue to work with the administration. We'll continue to fight for it, and we'll continue showing up to work. to ensure the safety of the American flying public, and we will do everything to get it back fully on track. But it should show that a government shutdown is not sustainable, and in no way should air traffic controllers ever be used as a political pawn in the process.
Reagan National Friday had the most cancellations, according to the FAA, was because of staffing. Just to clarify, is that just people calling out sick? Is that people can't afford to go to work? Is it in a way protest? Is it a combination of that?
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, before the shutdown, air traffic controllers got sick. During the shutdown, air traffic controllers get sick. After the shutdown ends, air traffic controllers will get sick. And DCA is an extremely low staff facility. That every day that they show up, they are already starting well below what they should. So 1 to 2 persons being gone, whether that they had to take medication for, Benadryl for the allergy season that's going on, they can't work that day. They have a stringent requirement to show up to work fit and ready for duty. That could be the added stresses and pressures of it. Every person is dealing with a different level, of financial stability or instability. So some of those issues may be real, but again, it just goes to show how fragile this system is, and putting this additional stress and pressure on it, we're going to see that level of issues that we have to contend with.
One more question. Could Jonathan say something also?
Yeah, I'm going to, by all means, here in just a moment.
I was just going to ask, kind of following up on that, in terms of, what are you seeing as kind of the most vulnerable areas in terms of where the staffing triggers are hitting the most? And are you seeing, like in the New York area, of course, where we're seeing a lot of these staffing triggers, is that because of the same reason as DC, where they're already sort of short-staffed?
This country is short-staffed right now. We're 3,800 certified professional controllers short. 91% of our facilities do not have the proper staffing. Over 41% of our facilities work a mandatory 6-day work week, 10-hour days. That is what you're getting to see day in and day out, is how few controllers actually run this system to keep it moving at what they do, and they should be lauded for the work that has been done. And now getting to see the disruptions that it causes to lose 1 or 2 absolutely proves why the long-term commitment to the hiring and training of the next generation of air traffic controllers is needed now more than ever, and why this shutdown has to end. But I do, speaking about the recruitment, the retention, the bringing in of new air traffic controllers, Jonathan has several trainees at his facility, recently attended a career day affair as well. I'd like him to speak a little bit about that and the impacts of the shutdown. Jonathan.
Thank you. Yeah, the impacts of the shutdown are real. In my facility, we're a training facility. We send people to the bigger and larger facilities. We're an influx. They come in, they get out. And now we have guys who are, they're all Gen Z. They're 23, they're 24. They're living with their parents already. They can't afford to live on their own already. And this has just made the situation 10 times worse. I had a career fair 3 days ago. I've done it for years. It's high school students, 9th and 10th grade year-olds coming to learn about air traffic. We're very popular. This was the first year I didn't have answers to their questions. The kinds of things they were asking us, why we should do this job, what are we looking for in the future, were things I didn't want to say. I told them how wonderful the job is, how great we are, how dedicated we are to the career field, how dedicated we are to our community, and how dedicated we are to each other, and that's what we're doing. And that's why we're still here.
Nick, I have real quick. So on Halloween, we saw 80% of the controllers. Nick, on Halloween, we saw 80% of the controllers at New York not show up. And the administrator said 20 to 40% of controllers at any given day are not showing up at the 30 largest airports. Do you think sort of the controllers hit a breaking point at that point? Like, what do you think accounts for the significant increase in outages over the last, say, 10 days or whatever?
Well, let's be clear. That statistic, I don't know it to be true. About 80%. When you only have 4 controllers and you have 2 of them that can't make it to work, you're at 50%. Some of our facilities have only 3 or 4 controllers on a shift, day in and day out. You've seen the delays that are because of it, but now you're just getting to see it nationwide when people are missing it. The true issue is people not getting paid. That's the issue. And the only solution to it is ending the shutdown and ensuring that they receive the compensation and pay that they rightfully deserve. There is no world that exists where you can't pay people and run the system the same. Issues are going to crop up. They're going to crop up across the country. And the absence of 1 or 2 controllers, it's not a matter of breaking them. It's a matter of them being fit and ready for duty and being able to show up and do the amazing job that they do day in and day out to serve the American public. They are the unsung heroes. They are the American patriots that Secretary Duffy talks about, and they are doing everything they can to hold this system together and be out there serving the American public during these trying times. But 41 days without pay is unacceptable.
Really quick, in the last 2 minutes, President Trump posted on Truth Social, very long Street part of it. All air traffic controllers must get back to work now. Anyone who doesn't will be substantially, quote, docked. For those air traffic controllers who were great patriots and didn't keep any time off the Democrat shutdown folks, I will be recommending a bonus of $10,000 per person for distinguished service to our country. Just came out. Any initial response to that?
So I'll take anything that recognizes these hardworking men and women, but we'll work with the administration on any issues that are out there. Air traffic controllers have continued to show up during this shutdown. They've endured the longest shutdown in American history, and every single day, they absolutely not only deserve their pay, they deserve to be recognized for what's going on. So we'll work with the administration through it. We'll work through the issues that are going on, and we want, just like the rest of the American people want, this shutdown to end. The frustrations that are out there are real, and we share them because we're frustrated with the process as well. Again, air traffic controllers should not be the political pawn during a government shutdown.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for that. Some of you have requested pull-asides. Let's discuss those, and we'll take care of that. But thank you for that. That's the end of the press conference.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You were just listening to the president of the National Air Traffic Control Association there, and you can hear the frustration for all of them if they have now missed their second paycheck in which they have not been paid. When you take into consideration, as you heard him say, the stress and the work that they take on within their job, it is certainly something in which they are frustrated by this government shutdown that continues to drag on now in its 41st day, again, building onto the longest shutdown that we have had in our nation's history. You even heard from the one woman there who says that she and her husband are both air traffic controllers, and neither one of them have been able to collect a paycheck right now. And you just think what that could possibly do for their family and their household, and as they're still expected to show up for their job. Now, he also clarified a few other things, right? You were getting reports and hearing about a number of people who worked within the air traffic control field who were calling out sick. And you heard there from the President, Nick Daniels, that there were people who were calling out sick even before the government shutdown, right? That's just a reality of what takes place. When you already have an industry that is low on staff and people call out, and then you add on top of that the government shutdown, it all kinds of builds up. And so one thing I wanted to point attention to as we listen to them there is there are a lot of people right now who are feeling the impacts of a major decision made by the Transportation Secretary because of the stress and the pressures that have been placed upon air traffic controllers, TSA agents, and pilots. I'm talking about the move now to reduce the number of flights that have been going out of these airports. 40 major airports are impacted, and as of today, more than 1,600 cancellations have taken place in United States airports. And remember, we said that this was going to ramp up. On Friday, it was 4%. It continues to go up until it's going to hit 10% this Friday. And then we're getting reports that if the government shutdown were to continue even beyond that, that the cancellations could be even more than that 10%. And we've been seeing so many reports of people who have been impacted across the country who have not been able to get in and out in a very quick manner, if at all, because of all of this. The biggest thing that Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has been repeatedly saying is that this is all for safety precautions, because anytime, as you heard there from the air traffic control president of the National Association, when all of that stuff compiles, you just don't want to add to an environment that's already stressful that could potentially cause an issue, and now you're in a safety situation, right? They're still showing up to work. They are still doing their jobs. They are still giving it their best go and their best efforts, and they still are saying that it is safe to fly. But until the government is funded, we are going to be seeing these delays. And in fact, the Transportation Secretary, again, Sean Duffy, is saying that even right after the government shutdown ends, you could still see some delays because of the inability to just ramp up right away. Okay, again, these air traffic controllers have been unpaid for weeks. Now, I can't even imagine not getting paid for weeks, not knowing when that money is going to come, and you're in a job where you're still expected to show up, right? Because other people's lives and their safety depends upon it. And so we know overnight that the Senate took that first major step towards ending this shutdown. We're going to have more on that in just a bit too, but that still hasn't been a final thing that is made. They still have some work that they have to do today, and then it has to go to the House. So it could still take some time for an actual official deal to be reached and signed on the dotted line. Over the weekend with these airlines, we know that there were even more thousands of flights that were canceled. That, by the way, also impacting Norfolk International Airport, not because it's one of the flights listed. I mean, one of the airports listed amongst those 40 heavily traveled airports, but because we know that flights from those airports coming in and out of Norfolk International have been canceled or delayed. So we are seeing the impacts right here in our community. Those cancellations are supposed to go up to 6% starting tomorrow in terms of cancellations. And again, by the end of the week, is going to reach 10% if lawmakers in D.C. cannot reach a decision. And it's very interesting when you think about it, because we're right here at the holiday season. Naya, have you already made your holiday plans? You know, if you're trying to travel for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. Really, Thanksgiving, I think, is what people are kind of nervous about right now.
Yeah, I'm not traveling for Thanksgiving, but I am traveling for Christmas, and I'm hoping that there's no flukes in the system when it's time for me to book my flight.
I'm with you. I am not traveling for Thanksgiving, but my sister texted me, and, you know, she was asking if I thought that it would be a good idea for her to leave from school. You know, she's in school in D.C., you know, one of the areas where they got a few airports impacted, and whether or not she should take a flight for Thanksgiving back home. And it's on the minds of a lot of people if you haven't already booked. Last minute flight travelers, all those kind of people, we are stressed right now. We are stressed.
But then also the ones who, like me, I'm trying to book far out from Christmas, but I'm still nervous. You know?
Yeah, it's certainly something. Let's go ahead. Can you pull up the map again of all of the airports that are impacted by this, so people, if they have not seen it, that they can get a glimpse of it? Let me see here. I think it is right.
Oh, you're
here.
talking about the map.
Yeah, I got you. And so, let's see there. Boom. So for people to kind of see there, this is a list of those 40 airports across the country that have been impacted by the reduction of air traffic by the FAA. And you can see right there in our particular region for Hampton Roads, we would be impacted by, you know, Reagan National Airport, also with the Charlotte International Airport down there that has been impacted, and also the other airports right there in that East Coast region. And so they are all experiencing some type of delays. Let's see if we can pull back up on Scan PC real quick, because I want to see a actual number here. As we look at it, again, the actual number of cancellations so far just today is 1,658. That's cancellations coming into or out of or within the U.S. at this point. And so a lot of people are probably scrambling to figure out what they're going to do. If we look at yesterday's, I'm going to pull that up really quickly here. I know that was several thousand that were impacted. It will not change at the moment. But again, you get the drift of the situation. A lot of people are impacted today. There we go. 1,658 cancellations. Oh, we got timed out on this. That's okay. But that is something that is impacting just a lot of travelers. And I know we actually have an expert who's going to be joining us here. And Naya, I'll go ahead and let you see if we can pull Holly up here, and I'll talk a little bit more as we try to get her settled in. But many of you are probably wondering, as we were just talking about it, what do you do, right? What do you do if you have plans to travel to see family this Thanksgiving? What do you do if you're trying to even think further ahead and you're just a little anxious about what the impacts could be for you? Again, we did get news overnight that Senate lawmakers have taken a huge step towards getting the government funded. But we're also, again, hearing from the transportation secretary that just because things are funded right away does not mean that everything at your airport is going to go back to normal immediately. It could take a little bit of time for them to get things back on schedule, especially when you're talking about those workers still not being paid. Okay. And so when you take that all into consideration, the government shutdown is one timeline. When things really go back to normal, when it comes to travel, that could be a different timeline, especially when we're looking at holiday travel, which we all know is crazy already. There's already a lot of issues that happen, and typically we would bring in experts to talk about holiday travel anyway because of how enormous it can be, particularly around Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year. And now we add in this wrinkle of a government shutdown and a reduction of flights, okay? And so we do have someone here to talk to us about it in case you needed a little bit of advice and you're wondering what can you do. We have Holly Dalby with Tidewater AAA, who is with us this morning to give us a little bit of insight, maybe just that tip that can help you ease your mind or at least navigate through this travel and government shutdown situation. Holly, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
So my first question to you, you just heard the setup. You are very aware of what's going on. What tips do you have for those travelers who are directly affected by the reduction of flights or this government shutdown in their travel?
The best thing all of us can do right now is to be patient and, if possible, be flexible so that we can control what we can. Do you have a plan B? Put that into place and have another option for your destination. Perhaps it's something, you're going somewhere that you can drive instead of fly. That might be another option for you right now. But really, patience and flexibility are the key at this point.
You know, it can be hard to be patient when you're at the airport waiting and waiting and waiting. I saw a post just this morning by a popular Norfolk-based food blogger who says that he was caught at the, I want to say Atlanta airport, Hartsfield-Jackson, where he was there for 7 hours, only to learn then his flight was canceled. Then he had to book on a different airline as well. So he was just happy to be able to get back to Norfolk. But I'm sure there's a lot of people, like you said, that patience can be hard. Speaking of patience, what do you do in the case of you've kind of been a little too patient and you haven't booked a flight yet? What would you tell to those people as they're looking at this situation thinking, oh my goodness, what should I do?
If you don't have a flight right now, you might want to consider driving. You can always look, see if there are flights available, see how much it's going to be to fly to your destination. But what other plans can you have? Can you shift your travel a few days out into the future? Or is this someplace that you can drive to?
And I'm glad that you said drive, right? Because I'm sure there are people who are going to have that thought process. You know what? I'm just going to get in the car and try to make it to my family or whatever I'm trying to do for the holidays, for those who can do that, right? Are you expecting more people to hit the roads because of this? Were you already expecting more people to hit the roads? And what is AAA kind of projecting now with all of this heading into Thanksgiving?
Well, our official Thanksgiving holiday travel forecast will be out in a few days. But based on what we have seen in the last year, you could expect traffic to be very heavy on the roads. So think about odd times to travel. Do you need to travel the day before Thanksgiving? Perhaps if you traveled Thanksgiving morning and got there to your destination for lunch or dinner, you would have fewer cars on the road. So what kind of flexibility can you make if you do have to drive for Thanksgiving?
You know, I will tell you myself, usually my family, we head down to Louisiana for the Thanksgiving holiday. And that would be a tough one for me coming from Virginia to go down. But I know there are people who just, when it comes to the holidays, when it comes to this type of year, it's that one time where you really feel connected. And I'm sure there are going to be people who do that regardless, just to try to make that work and try to ease their anxiety. You know, we've been talking about the news that came in overnight. It looks like lawmakers have made a big step towards reaching a deal to end this government shutdown. But we're also hearing that that doesn't necessarily mean that things will just automatically pick right back up at our local airports. So what do you kind of expect with that? And what would you tell the travelers who are like, yes, shutdown could be over, and they expect that quick turnaround? What's your thought process? And do we have any maybe historical, examples, maybe like in 2019 when something like this happened, to see if how long it would take for things to get back up to normal?
Well, I don't have any specific historical examples for you, but AAA recommends arriving at the airport extra early right now. And we're talking at least 2 hours before a domestic flight or 3 hours before an international flight. And that will give you extra time if there are long lines that you need to navigate. So arrive early. And then the other thing that's so critical, whether you're flying right now in the midst of everything or you're flying in a year from now, is download your airline's app and turn on notifications so that you always get the most current notifications of any delays or cancellations. That's something that we can do all the time and should when we're planning to fly.
Again, we have Holly Dalby with Tidewater AAA gracing us with her presence this morning, giving some much needed tips when it comes to travel amidst this government shutdown and its impacts. Holly, any other tips that you have for any travelers who are just right now trying to make sense of everything and put their best foot forward to get to where they need to go?
Staying on top of things with your airline and with the airport, staying up on their website, their social feeds, their apps. That's going to keep you informed. And another good tip you can consider is, can you get a ride to the airport rather than driving and leaving your vehicle there? That will give you some more flexibility in case when you return, if you're delayed, or perhaps your flight's canceled and you are left in an airport that might be within 4 or 5 hours of Norfolk, because we know we have a lot of those. So if you are stuck, as it were, in an airport in DC or Baltimore or Charlotte, even Richmond, you might be able to get a rental car and drive home and meet whatever obligations you have that next day. So think about that, maybe getting a ride to the airport or using rideshare, something like that, to give you a little more flexibility on your way home.
Good things for us to keep in mind. Holly, thank you so much for getting up with us and sharing those tips. And hopefully it helps somebody out there who is trying to figure out and navigate all of this, booking their flight, or they have booked their flight. Hopefully, things won't extend too much longer for travelers, particularly as we get closer to Thanksgiving, to Christmas, all of the holidays in the next month and a half. Thank you so much, Holly. We appreciate you.
You have a great day.
You too. Talk to you soon. So some solid tips there for people if you are planning to book any kind of travel. Naya, anything stand out to you that you're like, you know what, I'm going to keep that in mind as I prepare to see you said around the Christmas holiday, right?
Right. And it was interesting for her to mention getting a ride to the airport instead of leaving your car there, because this was actually going to be my first time I drove myself to the airport.
Are you
so
serious?
now I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
It was going to be, it's interesting. Typically I do the opposite. Typically I ride to the airport just because I'm so last minute with almost everything when it comes to packing. I'm that guy who wakes up and packs the morning of. and then I head out to the airport and I park, and that way when I'm coming back, I don't need to call anybody, I don't need to ask anybody. But I probably would have to take her advice on this particular situation because of that. And so again, hopefully you were able to get some helpful tips through what we just heard from Holly Dalby there with Tidewater, AAA. Another big thing to remember is that whatever airline that you're using, you heard Holly say, keep up with your airline, right? They're going to be notifying you in advance of whether or not your flight has been canceled. Most of the time, they're trying to get that information out to you. But one thing you should know, just legally, they will reimburse you if your flight is canceled. Okay, so that is on the table. That is something that they are required to do. When it comes to rebooking you, they will work to try to rebook you on another flight. That also is in there. And most of the airlines that we've seen so far, if not all of them, Delta, United, American, we went through their stuff last week. They are also going to be doing that in terms of giving you your refund, helping you to rebook without penalty, even if you take one of their basic economy fares. You know, those are the ones typically you buy them, you just trying to get on the plane, you just trying to get on, and it doesn't come with any guaranteed luggage or any of that. But the biggest thing of note is typically they say that you can't just change your flight. Well, if you're canceled because of this situation, these airlines have said that they will still help you even if you have basic economy in order to do that. Now, one thing that they are not obligated to do would be they don't necessarily have to give meal vouchers or accommodations. They can, but that's not necessarily something that they are mandated to do. So you want to keep all that in mind, again, as we are now at 1,600 flights canceled just for today in the United States as a part of all of this. So the big question that people have, right, is when is this all going to end? 41 days now. We are well beyond almost a full week more than what the last government shutdown, the last record shutdown went, right? Well, big news again, overnight, lawmakers in the Senate made a very big move that gets us closer to ending this government shutdown. And it took 8 Democrats breaking the ranks from their party to agree to a deal to end the shutdown. The big thing, though, that is getting a lot of criticism is that the deal does not include the main ingredient that Democrats for weeks have said was at the core of their argument not to agree to this deal, and that is the extension of those subsidies, the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. It does not guarantee that extension, even though we are now just weeks before they expire on December 31st. All right, so as part of that deal, here is what is included in the deal. We're looking at funding that would continue to reopen the government, and that would take us all the way through January, and then they would work through whatever differences they would have in that moment. Then you have SNAP aid would be funded as a part of this. Back pay for furloughed workers would be guaranteed. And then also what we saw from Senator Tim Kaine in his remarks in saying that it has a provision in there that would hopefully reinstate those who had been fired or lost their jobs amidst this government shutdown too. And speaking of Tim Kaine, bringing him up because he is one of the 8 Democrats in the Senate who broke ranks and voted in favor of this key test vote, right, in order to move the government forward in its funding. The others there are Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, Cortez Masto out of Nevada, Hassan out of New Hampshire, Dick Durbin out of Illinois, Shaheen out of New Hampshire, King, Independent out of Maine, Rosen out of Nevada, and then again, Tim Kaine in Virginia voting for this. So why did he do it? Why did he break with his own party? Notice Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, not amongst those. So why did Kaine go against his own minority leader and his fellow Democrat in Virginia and Mark Warner and vote for this bill? Well, let's hear it from him in his own words. Reporters were able to catch up with him overnight after this bill was pushed through. This is what he had to say for his decision.
To federal employees who are not going to be traumatized by RIFs going forward? Yeah. To people who are going to have an opportunity. Look, the Republicans passed a reconciliation bill that gutted people's health care a few months ago. Now we got a credible path to finding a fix for them. We still have to find the fix. And we were facing the reality, not the reality, facing the strong possibility of not an appropriations bill, but just a full year CR that wouldn't have had robust SNAP funding, wouldn't have had robust VA funding or Milcon funding. We didn't get all the full year appropriations bills in this, obviously, but we got some really important ones. So the SNAP issue is hugely important. And now we not only have it for the CR, we got it for the rest of the year at robust funding levels. So, you know, the question is, I had a lot of Capitol Police officers look me in the eye when I was coming in tonight for the vote and say thanks. And, you know, I've got some folks who didn't like the vote, but I'm going to have a whole lot of federal employees who are going back to work and they're getting their paychecks and they can live through the holidays without worrying that they're going to get a bad email at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning telling them they're laid off. They have been living under a cloud of anxiety since January 20, and we've lifted that cloud to some degree.
On the RIFs, sorry, we came in a little bit late. The discussions that you were having, was that with the administration?
It was really with members of the Republican leadership as well as Shaheen. So I was keeping the Shaheen team informed, but I was dealing with Thune, Katie Britt, and they were dealing with the administration. So I was dealing with both our side and their side, and we went back and forth through, you know, an awful lot between Friday night and 5:45 today to get the language.
Okay, and then just on, you know, the threat of these insurance premiums going up for millions of Americans was not enough to get Republicans to agree to extend it. So, do you have any sense that that has changed among Republicans?
Here, there are two realities. That threat, if it's a drumbeat, it's getting louder every day because people are going on to the market and they're, you know, not everybody goes on to the market on November 1 when it opens and starts to shop. I mean, some wait a while and they start to shop, and then people are seeing what these prices are going to be, and so that drumbeat is getting louder. It's getting louder and louder, and I had Republicans say to me, we know we have to fix this, but you got to help us save face. And we put this line in the sand down that we'll only talk about fixing this once you reopen government. And President Trump's insisting upon that. So we're not going to back down. I mean, that seems like kind of an arbitrary position, but I became convinced that they were sincere about that they were not going to talk about it as long as government was shut down. We could have waited for a month or 2 months or 5 months. How many SNAP benefits then would have suffered? They still weren't going to do it, but by voting to reopen, now it's a live discussion. So again, the way I kind of put it, setting aside the federal employee thing, let's just look at SNAP and tax credits. We had SNAP recipients suffering and likely to suffer more because even that contingency fund was going to run out before the end of the month. They're suffering, and we had no guarantee and no action on ACA. Now we've got robust funding for SNAP, and we've got a path on ACA. So that is much better than the status quo ante, and that plus what I was able to get for federal employees is why I signed on.
Do you wish that you would have started looking for this off-ramp sooner? You said that Republicans were never going to change in their position.
I didn't fully understand how dug in they were, again, because I was so focused on the Virginia elections. I wasn't in this discussion on the healthcare to see how dug in they were. But even as I was not part of these discussions, I was saying to Thune and others on the floor going back, listen, I need, some of you heard me say this in the hall, I need a moratorium on mischief. Others are working on the healthcare thing, I trust them. Others are working on the approach thing, I trust them. I need a moratorium on mischief, because if we vote to open and then the immediate step next week is Donald Trump fires a lot more people, it's going to blow up trust to get the full year deal. And so I've been preaching this moratorium on mischief for a month, but I think partly why did they finally give me the moratorium on mischief on RIFs? They needed my vote, but they also saw the election on Tuesday. They weren't giving me anything on my moratorium on mischief before Tuesday, but they sure gave it to me, you know, between Friday night and tonight, and I have to believe that some of the political reality was part of it. Plus, they needed my vote.
Timing, is this last vote of the night tonight? This one?
In all likelihood, there's a quirky Rand Paul amendment that may come up that may force us to have to come back in a while. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the real, and that's on an amendment, I think the real carry forward on Senator Thune offering the negotiated version as the substitute to the House bill that we've now proceeded to. I think that vote's likely to be tomorrow.
And then do you think this can all wrap up tomorrow then? Or
That
do you think
you're going to have to ask the R's, because I don't know if anybody on the Dem side is going to try to slow it down between votes, but you could still find somebody on the R side who might try to do it.
And then just what was Leader Schumer's reaction when, the 8 of you kind of came forward in caucus today? Was he understanding of the position that you guys were in?
He disagreed, but Gene has been keeping Senator Schumer involved, informed all during this. And I went to Senator Schumer at the start of this and told him, here's where I am, and here's where I'm likely to be. I'm going to be with you for a long time. But if there is a path forward that I see that can help this federal workforce, which is so huge in Virginia, you got to know that I'm going to be real sensitive to that.
Did he make a mistake in voting no?
No, I don't think that. I don't think any of my colleagues made mistakes in how they voted.
You don't often.
So you can hear it from him there why he decided to make the decision to vote in favor of this deal that does not include the key thing that Democrats all along have been fighting for, right? So you heard him from that. And again, his counterpart in Virginia, Mark Warner, did not vote for that measure. He voted alongside with Chuck Schumer, who said no to this deal overnight. And you heard it from Tim Kaine there. He does not believe his colleagues made a mistake, but he clearly went on his own convictions in this manner. Virginia, one of only 2 states, I believe, where you have representatives who are of the same party who voted against each other or separate of each other. Us here in Virginia with Warner and Kaine, and then also in Kentucky with Rand Paul and the Rand Paul and their team there in the Senate in Kentucky at the moment. So we have a comment from Mark Warner. I just wanted to read that as well. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to read this from Mark Warner, if we can pull this up real quick, Naya. Okay, so here we go. Every day the shutdown drags on. Virginians feel it, from federal workers struggling to pay their bills to families unsure how they will put food on the table because this administration is cruelly and deliberately withholding the assistance they need. He says, I want nothing more than to reopen the government, get folks back to work, and end the needless hardship that this shutdown is causing, cause a Republican shutdown. He says, I appreciate that this proposal includes important language preventing further mass layoffs of federal employees. That's a critical step in protecting our public servants from this administration's campaign of retribution, and something that I've long pushed for. But, says Warner, I cannot support a deal that still leaves millions of Americans wondering how they are going to pay for their health care or whether they'll be able to afford to get sick. We owe the American people more than a short-term fix that leaves working families staring down a healthcare crisis, and simply kicking the can down the road is not good enough. Families are already struggling with rising prices on everything from groceries to housing. He says that I will keep working in the Senate to bring costs down and relieve the pressure on working families who are already paying more because of President Trump's policies that are driving prices up instead of lowering them. Again, that is Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who voted against the test vote overnight, and also opposite of his colleague in the Senate from Virginia, Tim Kaine, who we just heard from. Again, I was saying that they are one of only 2 states where you had representatives from the same state who voted opposite of each other, the other Kentucky with Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell there. And so what happens now? So that was a big step, but it still needs some work in order for this to become official. And so right now, the Senate has reconvened. They just reconvened just moments ago. They are back on the Senate floor now to look at this vote, to make it official. They still have to go through that, take another vote in order for it to become what it will be to send to the House. And we heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today. We're expecting, it looks like the House could convene later this afternoon, but it depends on what happens with this bill. Very interesting, the timing of all of this, right? You had the election that took place last week, and Democrats seemingly were on a pretty big high and a lot of momentum that people argue that they were able to get through that. And then you obviously had the controversy and so many people who have been forced not to have SNAP benefits right now. There were those who thought that could be what ultimately tips the cap of all of this. You heard Tim Kaine say that was a part of his decision. And then you had what happened with the airports, right? With the airports and now the cancellation. So mounting pressure over time. So the timing of all of this is certainly interesting at this moment. Most Democrats still in the Senate are voting against this deal. But all Republicans have needed all this time, they've continued to say it, they just needed 5 to break the ranks in order for them to get to what they needed to, that 60 vote mark, in order to move this forward. So the timeline, though, we're still waiting to see exactly, how this will end. At this point, it's still the 41st day of this government shutdown. We're not quite sure how long it will take to get to this officially being done, right? Because, again, it still has to go through the House. It still has a few more steps. But certainly last night into today was a big step towards ending this shutdown. We're kind of holding it right now. There's no one speaking on the floor. We were hoping that maybe by the time we clicked on that somebody would be saying something, but at the moment it does not appear to be the case at the moment. Okay, I'm looking at something. Naya, let's turn to this just real briefly while we're monitoring what's happening in the Senate. I'm seeing something on News 1 Channel 3. I don't want to go to it just yet because I want to look at something. But here we have in News 1 Channel 1, we are expecting momentarily for there to be an announcement from HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., what they're calling an important announcement about women's health within our nation. So you can see people are starting to walk up to the podium here in Washington, D.C. We're expecting to hear from a number of different people, including, again, the Department of Human and Health Services there, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Health and Human Services Director Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and also the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, who is supposed to be speaking. This announcement is about advancing women's health. Let's go there live in Washington, D.C.
Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Good morning, everybody. I want to begin by acknowledging the Second Lady of the United States, Usha Vance, who's here today to celebrate a new era in women's health. And we're grateful for your presence and for the attention that you're bringing to this historic announcement. I also want to recognize Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez-DeRemer. And thank you again for standing with us. And a big hello to my friend, First Lady of West Virginia, Denise Morrissey, and thank you for being with us today. I also want to recognize my wife, Cheryl Hines, and my daughters, Kat and Kik, who are here. For more than 2 decades, the American medical establishment turned its back on women. Millions of women were told to fear the very therapy that could have given them strength, peace, and dignity through one of life's most difficult transitions, menopause. That ends today. The FDA is initiating the removal of a broad black box warnings from hormone replacement therapy products for menopause. We're challenging outdated thinking and recommitting to evidence-based medicine that empowers rather than restricts. When prescribed responsibly and started early, hormone replacement therapy transforms the lives of women. Hormone replacement therapy has been found to reduce the risks of cardiovascular disease and mortality by as much as 50%, Alzheimer's disease by 35%, bone fractures by 50 to 60%, as well as reducing cognitive decline and all-cause mortality. In other words, extending the lives for as much as 10 years. It helps women sleep better, think more clearly, and live fuller, longer, and healthier lives. In short, it restores balance, not just hormonally, but emotionally and physically. That's why in 1999, approximately 27% of postmenopausal women took hormone replacement therapy. But then in 2002, a study called the Women's Health Initiative found that women taking hormone replacement therapy may have an increased risk of breast cancer diagnoses, not mortality, but diagnoses. The study was not statistically significant, but it triggered a media frenzy and led to the FDA applying unscientific black box warnings to all hormone replacement therapy products in 2003. The label was designed to frighten women and to silence doctors. It warned of diseases and dangers that the data simply did not support. Bureaucrats at the FDA reacted out of fear, not gold standard science. And instead of correcting the record, the medical establishment doubled down in groupthink. The consequences have been devastating. Since that decision, more than 50 million American women have been scared away from treatments that could have eased their suffering and extended their lives. Before the panic, 1 in 4 women used hormone replacement therapy. Today, it's fewer than 1 in 20. That's not progress, that's neglect, that's malpractice. We can no longer accept a culture of fear that blocks innovation and keeps patients from proven therapies. But today, thanks to President Trump's bold leadership and unwavering commitment to restoring trust in public health and the courage of Commissioner Marty McCary, the FDA is correcting that mistake. After a thorough, evidence-based review of decades of scientific data, an expert panel, and public testimony, the FDA is announcing today that it will remove the misleading black box warnings from all HRT products. For the first time in a generation, the FDA is standing with science and standing with women. The era of ignoring women's health is older. The era of patronizing women is older. The FDA will follow this science. And America's women will finally get the care, the respect, and the honesty that they deserve. Today, we are restoring integrity to medicine, restoring faith in public health, and we are restoring balance to the lives of millions of women who have been ignored for too long. And that's what it means to make America healthy again. And now it's my honor to introduce my friend, Dr. and Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, who will share some more about this landmark decision and the steps that FDA is taking to improve the lives of millions of women.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Always an honor. Secretary Chavez-Dreamer, thank you for being here. Madam Second Lady, Mrs. Vance, thank you for supporting this endeavor. All my colleagues at the FDA, my colleagues at HHS, this is a historic day for women in the United States. The Women's Health Initiative study was the largest study ever done in U.S. history, a $1 billion study at the time. And you just heard how that study was misrepresented and created a fear machine that lingers to this day. Ask your doctor. But what you may not know is that there was an incredible backstory. The headline that hormone replacement therapy causes breast cancer was released to the media before the scientific data was released to the public. A week later, once the data was published, some of us looked at it and said, this is interesting. There's no statistical significance in the increase in breast cancer. If we don't have statistics, then we don't have science. All of a sudden, snake oil cures diseases, and science goes out the window. Women who took estrogen alone had a 24% reduction in breast cancer. And no clinical trial has ever shown that HRT increases the risk of breast cancer mortality. In talking to some of the scientists involved in my curiosity as a cancer surgeon and public health researcher at Johns Hopkins before I came into this role, I reached out to some of the scientists and asked them about this controversy. I learned that before the study was released, the researchers got together in a hotel in Chicago and a shouting match erupted. One of the scientists said, "If you put this out there, if you, quote, if you stir baseless fear around something so sensitive," that is breast cancer, "you can't put that genie back in the bottle." Those words were so prophetic. Look at where we are today. What he predicted is exactly what happened. The fear machine took on a life of its own. Medical groupthink took seat. Just like the medical groupthink that told us opioids were not addictive for 15 years, like the medical groupthink that said kids should avoid peanut butter until they're age 3 to prevent peanut allergies. It turns out it increases the risk of peanut allergies with avoidance in the first 3 years. They got it perfectly backwards. Like the groupthink that saturated fat causes heart disease directly. For 50 years, we got that wrong, ignoring the role of refined carbohydrates. Tragically, for women, 50 million women since that study 23 years ago have been denied or never offered or talked out of the life-changing, life-saving benefits of hormone replacement therapy, including my mom. Many people know about the short-term benefits, alleviating the short-term symptoms of menopause, which can last 8 to 10 years. They can be severe, not like we were taught in medical school, that some women experience menopausal symptoms, but they last a couple years and they're usually mild. No, that was misinformation. The symptoms occur in over 80% of women. They last on average 8 years, and for many women, they are severe, even debilitating. Mood swings, night sweats, weight gain, hot flashes, divorce. By a large body of evidence, there are now recognized to be profound long-term health benefits that few people, even physicians, know about. A large body of evidence. The reduction in risk of Alzheimer's that's been suggested in one study. But let's just talk about the risk of bone fractures going down 50 to 60%. This is New England Journal level of medicine evidence. A woman who makes it to age 80 has a 1 in 3 chance of having a hip fracture. It is avoidable with a risk reduction of 50 to 60%, and so we're hammering rods in a woman's hip as a part of an operation for a condition that may have been avoidable. We don't talk about this issue as much as we should. Let's just cite the data on heart disease. More than, in the journal Cancer, I'm going to hold it up right here, in the journal Cancer 3 years ago, they concluded that more than 40 observational studies show a consistent 30 to 50% reduction in coronary heart disease in HRT users compared to non-users. A 30 to 50% reduction in heart disease. What are we doing? The number one cause of death in women is heart disease. The power of dogma. In the journal Circulation, again, massive, highly respected studies, 30% reduction in all-cause mortality and a 48% reduction in heart attack deaths. Okay, we talk about statins all the time. We never talk about HRT. Statins have up to a 35% reduction. And these studies are showing up to a 50% reduction. What are we doing? Not offering women this potentially powerful treatment. With few exceptions, there may be no other medication in the modern era that can improve the health outcomes of women on a population level than hormone replacement therapy. After 23 years of dogma, the FDA today is announcing that we are going to stop the fear machine, steering women away from this life-changing, even life-saving treatment. The FDA is taking action to remove the black box warnings from estrogen-related products. This is based on a robust review of the latest scientific evidence. Our expert panel at the FDA we conducted a few months ago, some of those doctors and experts are here with us today. We are also approving 2 new drugs for the treatment of menopausal symptoms. We are listening to doctors who have been waving the flag in the air saying, hey, we have this wrong. We are listening to women who have been challenging the paternalism of medicine. We are listening to female medical students that have demanded more menopause education in the curricula. This administration hears your voice and is not afraid to challenge the medical status quo. If you listen to people, and I've seen this at the bedside, if you listen to the patients, you learn a lot. HRT has saved marriages, rescued women from depression, prevented children from going without a mother. A male-dominated medical profession, let's be honest, has minimized the symptoms of menopause, and as a result, women's health issues have not received the attention that they deserve. More than 80% of women have notable severe symptoms lasting up to 8 years. How could the medical establishment get it so wrong for so long? That's the power of groupthink. Women deserve the same rigorous science as is used for men. We don't believe in medical dogma. We believe in evidence, science, patient choices, and restoring the doctor-patient relationship. And the way we do that, and we talk about this all the time in the Secretary's office, the way that we restore the damaged public trust is by showing some humility. So with that, I want to thank everyone who's here, including the FDA scientists, Christine Wynn, Janet Maynard, and so many others. Sarah Brenner, my deputy commissioner, is now going to come up and give some comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. McCary. So we have come a long way since our roundtable earlier this year at FDA. I would like to consider today our arrival at the start line, not the finish line on this issue. The start of a new era in promoting, protecting, and preserving women's health across the entire life cycle. For decades in medicine, understanding and addressing the differences between women's and men's bodies has been deprioritized. The unique physiological changes and needs of women have either been steamrolled or ignored. Menopause is not just a medical term. It's a deeply human and vulnerable experience. Like puberty, menarche, the phases of the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, postpartum, and lactation, menopause touches every part of a woman's being. Her body is literally changing through each phase of life. This is markedly different than the reproductive life cycle of men, who experience puberty, adulthood, and aging differently than women, both physiologically and culturally. Regarding menopausal treatment, for years, women were told that HRT could cause breast cancer. Black box warnings on HRT products discouraged doctors from prescribing and patients from inquiring about these products. Those fears shaped decades of medical guidance, family decisions, and FDA policy. Realigning beliefs with new and emerging data and scientific findings takes time and effort and courage, but it's worth it. We must encourage ourselves and others to be open-minded and seek an honest evaluation of where conclusions from the past may have been wrong and how we can evolve our understanding and practices moving forward. As women, we are caretakers, mothers, daughters, aunts, sisters, and leaders. We give so much of ourselves to others. Today, with this action, we affirm that women's health matters. This milestone would not have been possible without the bold leadership of President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, and Commissioner McCary. Through the MAHA movement, we are tackling outdated assumptions and groupthink head-on and returning to the simple truth that when science evolves, policy must evolve too. Today is a meaningful day for women's health in America. Thank you for joining us in making America healthy again for women of all ages. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Jackson to come up.
Today, we have the opportunity to add up to a decade of healthy years to the life of every woman that you love. The science is clear. Hormone therapy is safe and effective and it is hugely beneficial to the vast majority of women when properly timed. When a woman goes through menopause, she becomes 2 to 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's than a man. Cardiovascular disease becomes her #1 killer, taking 8 times more lives than breast cancer. She's more likely to suffer from debilitating bone fractures, muscle loss, depression, and metabolic disease. Menopause shortens women's lives. Today, that changes. The black box warning on estrogen, a label based on the flawed, overgeneralized, and misinterpreted WHI study, kept tens of millions of women from accessing this essential hormone. Women have endured sleepless nights, derailed careers, painful sex, broken bones, and a loss of well-being, all because the science was misread. Estrogen isn't just about ovaries. It is just as much about the brain and its impacts on every organ in a woman's body. When estrogen vanishes, a cascade of disease and aging begins. A preponderance of data now shows that estrogen, when started early, acts as a protective shield for the brain, lowering risks of memory loss, mental health decline, and neurodegenerative disease, even Alzheimer's. It improves metabolic and immune function, reduces cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and fracture risk. Estrogen is one of the most effective longevity interventions for women. And yet, we have told women and their doctors the exact opposite. Tens of millions of women have suffered. They will never get those years back. But we can transform the future. It is time for American healthcare to catch up to American science. Secretary Kennedy, Dr. McCary, thank you for your leadership and your courage. And to the researchers, clinicians, and advocates who have worked relentlessly for this day, this is your win. Today is your day. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Rachel Rubin.
Wow. Those of us who see the impact of urinary tract infections on women's lives are thrilled with these long overdue label changes. You see, when hormone levels decrease, it can lead to urinary frequency, urgency, pain with sex, and recurrent urinary tract infections. We call these symptoms the genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or GSM. Urinary tract infections are not just uncomfortable, they also cost our healthcare system billions of dollars and cause serious health consequences to the people we love, like sepsis and death. But there's a simple treatment, vaginal hormones, and they are safe for all ages, and they're proven to get at the root cause of GSM. So why aren't more doctors prescribing this life-saving medication? Because until today, the warning label on the box falsely says that vaginal estrogen causes cancer, stroke, blood clots, heart attacks, and probable dementia. Yet not a single scientific study shows this. And because of that warning label placed in 2003, an entire generation of clinicians were never taught the details. And the details matter here. You see, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are all different, which matters when talking to patients about the risks and benefits of hormone therapy. Pills that are swallowed and metabolized through the liver carry different risks than those that go through the skin, like a patch, gel, or when used vaginally at low doses. For the medical community, we wanted to make this as easy as possible. So this year, the American Urological Association published guidelines endorsed by many other medical specialties that explains how to diagnose and treat the genitourinary syndrome of menopause, including how to prescribe vaginal estrogen. Because patients need their surgeons to know that vaginal estrogen should not be stopped before surgery. It doesn't increase blood clots, but it does prevent urosepsis readmissions. They need their oncologists to know that women with breast cancer who use it may actually live longer. And they need their primary doctors to know how to write the prescription, recommend it for life, and use it even if you're using systemic hormone therapy for hot flashes and osteoporosis prevention. Today's announcement is the culmination of decades of medical research, education, and advocacy, pioneered by the many people in this room and watching today, but it's also just the beginning. It will take more education and more advocacy to ensure this change benefits the tens of millions of women who are currently not getting the care that they deserve. Thank you so much, and I'd like to welcome another urologist, my friend Dr. Kelly Casperson.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, and leaders, today marks a monumental shift in women's health. The FDA has finally acted to correct decades of misleading guidance. As a surgeon and advocate, I stand here for the 80 million American women over 40 whose health has been shaped by misinformation instead of fact. When I was in residency, I was told women were too complex, as if their health needs were unknowable. Years later, a bladder cancer survivor in tears reminded me how wrong that was. She wasn't complicated. She was in pain, and no one had treated it. That moment shifted everything. I started asking, who is taking care of the people who are supposed to be partnered with the people that urologists like me are giving testosterone and Viagra to? Because here's the truth. Women's care has been an afterthought. He gets treated. She gets dismissed. Families fracture. It doesn't have to be this way. Estrogen is FDA approved for osteoporosis prevention, premature menopause, and several symptoms of menopause. And while 80% will experience symptoms, only 5% receive treatment. If a patient does get a prescription from her doctor and brings it home, nearly 1 in 3 will never use it because of the fear created by the incorrect warning label. Today, there is hope. Evidence now outweighs inaction. The FDA's decision to remove the boxed warning is not just regulatory, it's revolutionary. What happens here will be followed in other countries too. Worldwide, women spend more years in ill health than men, despite having safe, effective, even preventative treatment that until now has been held back by fear. To the researchers who refused to back down, thank you. To the clinicians who pushed past outdated protocols, teach our peers. And to the women who spoke up, you moved the line. Let today be the day we stopped treating women's health as a footnote and started treating it as the standard. Thank you.
Okay, you were just listening to an announcement here this morning by the HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as they are looking at the FDA is removing black box warnings from hormone treatments for women who are experiencing menopause. They say they're going back against something that's been in place now for more than 20 years and looking at something that they believe will help women in terms of being able to get the treatment that they need. I do want to kind of transition right now to a situation that just caught our attention. This is in Florida at this moment. This is in Coral Springs, Florida. We have an aerial view of a plane crash that appears to have crashed in a neighborhood there. Right now, not a lot of information that is coming out at this moment. This aerial view is just showing us the location where it appears that this plane did crash. It looks like it's the back of a neighborhood there. You can see there are first responders on the scene. You can also see the damage there on what appears to be a fence. And as this plane continues to pivot over to our left here, you will see what looks like the markings of some kind of impact there in the ground into the water. We do not see any evidence there of a plane at the moment. Again, we're not in control of this aerial shot. This is another media partner here for an ABC affiliate in that region. However, you can see there the police officers surrounding that scene, firefighters there as well. You can imagine paramedics are there also, as Naya works to pull up a map of the area in which this location is. And so, again, what we know now is that some form of small plane apparently crashed here in this neighborhood in the Coral Springs area of Florida. If they zoom in at any point, we were even able to pick out, I believe, Naya, you saw it, and then you showed me what appeared to be the tire, the wheel, the landing wheel of a plane there. You can see a few of the debris there in the backyard of this home. There is clearly an attention to this pond or this retention area there, as the camera there is kind of focused on that area. So we're not quite sure if that is where the plane ended up in, but you can see that skid mark going into the water. Let's see if they will. You can kind of see it right there, right next to that tree. They keep moving this camera, but you see next to the tree there, I wonder what this is in the blue. They are zooming in. Again, we are not in control of this particular picture, all right? We have no way to communicate back and forth with the people who are manning this camera at the time. This is one of our affiliates, so we're kind of going based upon what we can see as we await for more information to come out of this situation in Florida. But you can kind of see it right there at the top left of your screen there. We were looking at it on what appeared to be some kind of wheel there in the backyard. I think that they're just trying to get a shot there of the first responders who, let's see what they are doing at the moment. Not quite sure if any of them are going into the water, have come out of the water. Right now it appears that they are just kind of waiting and seeing. Not quite sure what that would be, but clearly they are, our camera there is fixated on that team there on the side of this home at the moment as we continue to look up information to figure out. We can tell by the look of this, though, and by looking at the map, that this is a residential neighborhood. Again, in Coral Springs, Florida. It appears that this particular crash happened about an hour ago. So crews have been there now for roughly an hour at this time. And you can see there for yourself. We showed you images there. We're not quite sure. Now you see this blue thing in the water. I'm not quite sure if that is anything associated with this or what it may be. But clearly this camera continues to push into the water there. This is a broader view of this neighborhood in which you can clearly tell this is the center of attention for the first responders as to where this small plane may have crashed there. We're not quite sure if this blue element within the water there is a part of the crash or not, but there's clearly a focus on that particular area within the water. But this happened around 10:30 this morning. It appears that the aircraft or whatever collided there in the backyard of this home, striking that fence in their backyard, and then potentially going into this lake or pond there that you can see for yourself. We don't have any information as of now on any injuries. I'm not seeing that reported anywhere. I'm not seeing any information about what may have led to that crash. This is what we have. We saw this image pop up. We got a quick note from those within ABC that they were looking into a plane crash that had happened in this area. And so far, there has not been any new information to come out of that at the moment. And so we just wanted to bring it to you right away so you can see it. We'll stay on it for a little bit longer as I continue to look up some information to see if we can find anything. But it certainly would be the latest in a series of plane crashes that have taken place across the country. Most of them appear to be small plane crashes that have taken place, but we've even seen within the last few days that plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky. Completely separate situation, obviously, there with that UPS cargo plane crashing into Kentucky, killing more than a dozen people, and still several people still unaccounted for in that happening almost a week ago, last Tuesday. But this would add on to what has been, at least in this year, in the last 18 months, a number of plane crashes or aircrafts that have crashed, most of them small, but we've seen this taking place across the country here recently. Speaking of that crash in Louisville, the UPS at this point, they are grounding all of the similar planes that are similar to that particular style, saying they want to check something with the engine of those planes because that plane's left engine did fall off, and then when it crashed caught fire, which led to, investigators believe, led to that crash there in Louisville, Kentucky. That's the update out of that situation. But right now you are looking in Florida. This is Coral Springs, and again, we're not in charge of these cameras, but it does look like they are seeing something there reflected in the water that they're zooming in on. You can kind of see something there. We're not quite sure what that is exactly, but we do believe that this water is clearly related to what took place, as you can see all the first responders who are currently there at that moment. Again, a small plane crash happening there. So we're going to continue to follow this. Maybe we'll check in. I'll look through Twitter to see if there have been any new updates that have come in through the local departments there. While I do that, I do want to quickly jump right back, if we can, to this presser that is taking place in Washington, D.C. Actually, no, let's see here. Let's see what they're looking at the moment. I don't know what they're zooming in on, but again, we knew that this was a residential neighborhood where this small plane crashed. It appears right now they're just kind of looking all around the area to see if there's anything they can pick up or glean from how this may have potentially affected this community there. Okay, while they're there, they're going to stick on that shot. I do want to get the tail end of this FDA and HHS announcement here with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where they're removing black box warnings from hormone treatments for women with menopausal symptoms. Doctors here at this press conference today believing that it will undo what has been 20 years of a lack of progress that has not helped women get the care that they need. We'll go back to it at this moment and listen to them, but we're going to follow and monitor what's happening in Florida in the meantime too.
Active, robust discussion as a group of medical experts spontaneously. And so we're doing more of that. We're doing both advisory committees following the long FACA process of the government. And we are also convening experts to say, speak your mind passionately, state your conflicts of interest if you have any, speak your mind passionately about an important topic in medicine that is not being talked about, that needs to be talked about. And this was one of those panels. As you know, we also had a similar forum on SSRIs in pregnancy. We had one on cell and gene therapy. So we're going to continue to have those. It allows us to have a robust debate without all the bureaucratic barriers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Off. Okay, here we go, back in it. So again, those were FDA and HHS officials who were the FDA commissioner and then HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there speaking about their decision to roll back on longtime black box warnings on hormonal treatments for women with menopausal symptoms. And so we wanted to catch the tail end of that at the moment. But right now, we're in between a few different things. One, the Senate is back in session again, trying to take the next step in the deal that was reached overnight to reopen the government. We're also waiting for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to speak in D.C. He's expected to be at the podium around noon. Surely he should have a lot to say about what took place last night in the Senate. We know that House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today urged House lawmakers to come back to D.C. So he wants to get the House back in session. So now that a deal appears to have been reached in the Senate. But at this very moment, we're going to take a few moments while we're in between of those things, and we're going to hear oral arguments happening in the Supreme Court looking at religious liberties for inmates. This coming out of a case in Louisiana in which a man had his hair shaved there within the facility in which he was being jailed, and him arguing that because of his beliefs that his hair should not have been shaved in that facility. And so we'll go into the oral arguments. Again, this is the Supreme Court that is hearing it, just as we're kind of waiting in limbo between a few different things that are happening in D.C. All right, it looks like that right now is on a break at the moment. Again, those oral arguments are taking place right now or today in that case. But big news out of the Supreme Court while we are sitting here talking about it is that today Supreme Court justices announced that they are not going to be taking up a case to revisit same-sex marriage in the U.S. That's big news there. They're not going to look at undoing that case that took place in 2015 that allowed for same-sex marriages in the U.S. So that is big news that has come out of the Supreme Court just within the last hour or so here. So a major decision that will impact many people across our country that has been of certain interest, of course. And so, again, we can take a live look now at the U.S. Senate. This is where the latest is taking place right now about the attempt to end this government shutdown after 41 days. And the impacts of this shutdown really are being felt for many people, particularly those who are federal employees. Can you imagine not getting paid for 41 days? We already know that across the country, there are so many people, millions of people statistically, who are only one paycheck away from losing, being in a bad situation within their homes, and some people being in worse cases where they would be on the street. There are a lot of people who are just living paycheck to paycheck. And to be 41 days at this point, including what we heard from air traffic controllers earlier in a press conference at the beginning of the stream, to go 2 paychecks at this point without getting anything. There are many people who are impacted by this shutdown who are now faced with very difficult decisions, right? There have been things that have been put in place so that people could not be penalized in terms of some states have put in things that would prevent those who are federal employees that are impacted by this to be evicted. Others are doing other things that will be able to help them make ends meet as they go through. But make no mistake, there is a large number of people, our neighbors, who are right now staring at a very challenging circumstance because we are this far into this government shutdown. And overnight, a key step was made towards ending it. But with that, Democrats now are in a very interesting situation with 5 flipping overnight, joining 3 others who are already on board to go against the Democratic Party and sign on this deal, in which still has to go through another official process, as you see the Senate there in chambers today to try to figure out if this will move forward officially. Of those, we talked about it earlier, Tim Kaine, who has even broken ranks with his own fellow Virginian and Mark Warner in the Senate. And he is saying at this point that he is going to be voting for this particular deal, and that he was citing just the difficulties that federal workers, like I was just talking about, that they're experiencing. And not just federal workers, but people who depend upon SNAP benefits, what they are dealing with people in the holiday season who are not able to get flights, right? Like all of these things he is citing, not wanting to move forward. Other Democratic lawmakers who voted in favor of that test vote late last night were quoted saying that it did not appear at this time that, yes, the strategy to this point has placed some pressure, but they didn't believe that Republicans would eventually budge when it came to the healthcare subsidies, which are not included in this particular deal. And so they didn't see the point in continuing this particular shutdown from what they had the opportunity to end, in their opinion, if they did not see there being any long-term change in the Republicans being able to kind of say that they were going to do as Democrats wanted and make it a part of that particular bill. So again, we're taking a look there as they are kind of at this point, they're in session. That started around 11 o'clock. Not long ago, I did see Senate Majority Leader John Thune speaking, but I have not seen anybody else hit the podium here within the last few minutes. But as soon as somebody is in, of course, we'll try to go to them for sure. If you're wondering, for those who are following and wanting more information on that plane crash out of Florida, that shot was taken down at the time. They were kind of purveying that area, but we're tracking that small plane crash in Coral Springs, Florida. Still no information on any injuries or what caused it. We really couldn't even see a real image of the plane itself, and so we're not quite sure the real details when it comes to what went all into that. But what we can tell you is that that plane did crash into the back of a neighborhood there, potentially into a lake or pond behind some homes there in Florida. Of course, we will wait and expect to get more information on that when it comes. Okay, so Naya, a lot kind of taking place there between 10 and 11:54. We're in the last 6 minutes of this stream, and at this point, it's kind of the lull before everything picks back up at noon, which always seems to happen at times, when you're like, okay, let's ramp up, and then it wants to kind of slow down. But there's a lot of news happening today that will impact a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And Hakeem is expected to take the podium. I'm sure that's probably going to happen as soon as we end the stream.
Of course, that's how it always works. As soon as we end it is when they pop up, right? But it'll be interesting to hear what he says today, because Democrats, particularly Democratic leadership, and Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, just a few days ago, right after the elections, and Democrats had big days in multiple states, including here in Virginia, Schumer and Jeffries, they demanded a sit-down meeting with President Trump. That wasn't even a week ago. And Schumer did not vote in favor of this test vote that took place last night in the U.S. Senate. These other Democrats are breaking from the Democratic leader in the Senate. So it'll be interesting to hear what the Democratic leader in the House, in Hakeem Jeffries, has to say here momentarily about the potential ending of the shutdown. You heard Speaker Johnson earlier basically saying it appears that things are done. He's finally bringing the House back into session, which the Democrats have wanted and been calling for weeks. And he did not want to do that until today. He called for them to try to come back. Mind you, tomorrow is Veterans Day, so we'll see what that looks like. And the travel delays that a lot of people are experiencing, you would imagine, would affect lawmakers too. So how long it takes for them to get in session, I do not know. We do not know at this point. But it will be very interesting to see how Hakeem Jeffries plays his role here today in this deal that appears to have the votes that it needs, the 60 votes that it needs in order to move forward. So looking forward to hearing his remarks and looking forward to hearing from Chuck Schumer. So, you know, we showed you the Senate floor. Chuck Schumer had not spoken so far this morning, and I do not know what this potentially means for him as a leader to have other Democratic lawmakers go away from what he has voted for. So we will certainly see what happens there. But right now, I don't know. I'm not seeing too much activity in the Senate happening. For those who are new to this situation, all right, you can see it pulled up. You can also see it, Naya, show them what we're looking at and how we kind of monitor things, right? So we have our big board. Naya's smiling. She loves it when we do this. We have our big board here, right? So we're constantly monitoring. If you ever see my eyes flash this way, we are looking to see what is happening with all of our feeds. And so this is how we monitor what is going on. And so this is kind of what we've been watching throughout this day here within our streaming studio. You can see Naya down there in that corner. She's hiding out. There you go. Handy dandy partner. Not in crime, though. Not in crime, but partner indeed here at this point. But yeah, it'll be interesting, Naya. I really don't know. I'm really curious to see what both Democratic leaders are going to say now that we've heard from both House Speaker Johnson and we saw Senator Thune on the Republican side speak today. Not quite sure what the tune is going to be for those Democratic leaders, and maybe that's why we haven't heard from them just yet. So we will see. All right, your time right now, though, 11:58. And this is going to wrap up things for us here on Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. Thank you so much for joining us at this time. Next, you're going to hear Ashley Smith on 13 News Now at noon. You can stick with us right here on 13 News Now Plus to do so. Then at 1 until 3, Naya's back with Connor Reel for more Live Impact News, and they'll probably take in what is going on still in the Senate as things pick up this afternoon. But for now, we thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here, this team, tomorrow at 10 o'clock from 10 until 12, right here on 13 News Now Plus. We'll see you then.